Funding for this program is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.
Clean water, biking, and a remarkable doll collection. On Cue has plenty in store for you today, and it's all coming up next.
From KSMQ Television in Austin, this is On Cue, connecting interesting issues and interesting people. On Cue.
The city of Mankato is spending millions of dollars on phosphorus management of its water supply, not to mention thousands more removing sediment from stormwater ponds. And they're facing the possibility of perhaps having to drill new wells for city drinking water if nitrate pollution in the Minnesota and Blue Earth rivers contaminate existing wells. Clean water is an issue across Minnesota, and our special guest today, Rebecca Flood, is Assistant Commissioner for the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency and joins me today. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate being here.
Sure, Commissioner. Thanks for coming to KSMQ. How does the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency monitor water, in this case Mankato? How are you helping them with that situation?
Well, the situation with Mankato and lots of other wastewater treatment facilities and municipal governments are actually very similar. Municipalities are spending lots of money in order to treat their wastewater, treat their drinking water, deal with various stormwater activities, and they've done a fantastic job in terms of meeting federal requirements for discharging treated wastewater that's safe, and as well as treating drinking water so it's safe for their citizens. What's important, I think, also is to look at kind of comprehensively all of the things that are going on within the state of Minnesota for water. And a lot of that has to do with not just cities and making sure that there's a balance with what cities are required to do under the Federal Clean Water Act as well as state regulations, but look at the impacts from agricultural stormwater runoff and the impacts that that has on our water resources.
Governor Dayton has really, in the last few years, made water an issue, and he speaks about it often, about we need to do a better job. Can you talk a little bit about, because we have the impression, or at least I do, that Minnesota is wonderful with regard to water quality. Has that statewide been slipping a bit?
Well, I really appreciate that, you know, given that I'm someone who has a job focusing on statewide water policy, it's great that the governor has that as a particular focus within his administration. And what we've been seeing across the state is we absolutely have high quality waters in various areas of the state. We also have waters that are degraded and that may be slipping. It's almost like we're loving our water resources to death in a lot of ways. We're also dealing with a number of additional factors that we haven't really had to think much about because we have high quality waters, like we're increasing in population in the state. We have more intensified agricultural use of the land, and whatever really you do on the land is going to impact those local water resources. So we have to be more cognizant, I think, as individuals and communities about what our impacts are on our water resources so that we can maintain the water quality that we have, the waters that meet water quality standards, and restore those waters that need some additional help.
Federally, and I know you're a state agency, but the Clean Water Act, it was a long time ago, 1972, federal. Is it still in force? Does it have to be renewed? And what did it do?
The 1972 Clean Water Act is still in force and effect. And it also, Minnesota is a state that has the authority to administer the Clean Water Act within the state. So we act as the state enforcement agency, the state administrator of the Clean Water Act. And what happened in 1972, and maybe particularly going back to Mankato and other cities, when that act was passed and we found that wastewater treatment facilities had to do upgrades of their wastewater plants in order to meet these new federal requirements, is the federal government also created a construction grants program that brought millions and millions and millions of dollars into states in order to help cities and communities upgrade their treatment plants. So 75% of the funding that went to wastewater plants was federal grants. We matched that on a state basis by 15% state grants, so that local municipalities only had to pay 10% of the cost of upgrading their wastewater infrastructure. Eventually that transitioned out to strictly loans, and although they're low interest loans, they're still loans that communities have to pay back, so that now, as that aging infrastructure is reaching the end of its useful life, and a lot of communities need to either replace it or upgrade it to meet new water quality standards, that's a lot of heavy investment that local municipalities have to do in order to do those upgrades. And a lot of them can't afford to do that because they have to pay back those loans.
And there's not a federal piece to help with the second generation.
That's correct. There's no federal grants that are existing now. So when we look at what we need to do on a statewide basis, we can think about a variety of different things. Again, we do have a low interest loan. The legislature at the governor's recommendation is funding a bonding program to help kickstart those infrastructure investments that communities need to make. There's now grant programs on the state basis that are going to really help them manage both their wastewater and their municipal stormwater.
Just want to let you know, folks, we're honored to have Rebecca Flood with us, Assistant Commissioner of the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. Last session, legislatively, or maybe two ago, the governor talked about berms or buffers on agricultural land, and we have a lot of folks in the agriculture industry down in our viewing area here. And you're have been holding listening sessions. What's the status of that change?
The governor has had a buffer initiative that got enacted by the legislature that requiring farmers and landowners to provide permanent vegetative cover around lakes and streams that are within their properties in order to protect those water resources. I think a lot of people were concerned that the governor said, this is a law that's on the books. It may not be effectively enforced, so let's enforce it. And I think people didn't like being told what to do. So the governor has created these town hall listening sessions, what we're calling 25 by 25. In this past January, the governor kind of said, I don't think we're going fast enough to get to clean water. I want to see a 25% improvement in water quality by 2025. But I'm going to hold these town hall sessions in order to hear from the people about how does that happen? How does that happen in southern Minnesota? And how does that look differently than what may need to happen in northern Minnesota or northwestern Minnesota? So he wants to hear, so the buffer initiative was kind of his idea about how to improve water quality. Now he wants to hear from people about what their ideas are. What does it look like to improve 25% by 2025 within a local area? And how are people going to change their own behavior in order to help achieve those outcomes?
And folks who want information about those sessions can certainly go on to the PCA website.
The governor has a website Governor Dayton and Lieutenant Governor Tina Smith have a website that you can look for 25 by 25 information on, as well as the Environmental Quality Board. You can access information there as well.
In the remaining moment or minute we have, farmers, is there new concerns about pollution type in the water, or is it basically the same, phosphorus, those kind of things, or are there new hazards to water?
I think what we're looking at primarily as agricultural sources of pollution are nitrate, phosphorus, and sediment. So whenever stormwater is either running off the land or through tile drainage systems and altered hydrology, maybe running through tile systems or affecting how water flows, how quickly it flows off the land, those are the three main parameters, pollutants, that we're really worried about in terms of both agricultural runoff as well as runoff from municipalities.
Right, municipalities, that's the bigger, the farmers would say, it's all that blacktop and all those parking lots that are causing this, not us.
Right. I think that when you look at whatever it is, the predominant land use in an area is going to be the predominant impact on water quality. So where you have a lot of municipal pavements, that type of thing, you're going to have that area impacting water quality. But we farm 26 million acres in the state of Minnesota. That's a large type of land use, and that's going to have impacts on water quality as well. Even though it's from individuals and individual farmers, they may not think that they're polluting, but everybody that does something to the land is impacting the water. So we have to look at that, our own individual actions, and see what we can do to change that in order to protect our water resources.
I learned a lot here. Thank you. Thank you for your service, Minnesota, and thanks for coming.
I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you so much.
Rebecca Flood, Assistant Commissioner of the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. Well, stay with us. Greg Seams and Vision 2020 is up next.
Queue up your own comments for On Cue and send them to us at onq@ksmq.org.
Welcome back to On Cue. We're here on location at the Coffee House on Main in Austin, talking to leaders who are making a difference in our community. Vision 2020 began 5 years ago with a simple goal: to make Austin a better place to live, work, and play for everyone by the year 2020. Citizens submitted thousands of ideas for transforming Austin and voted on their favorites, giving us the issues and priorities our volunteers have been working on to this day. None of this would be possible without their time and effort, and with over $24 million in grants, donations, and in-kind support received for our project so far, it's hard to argue with the results. I'm joined today by Steve Kime, who is the chair of our Biking and Walking Committee and has led a number of important initiatives over the years, so thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you for having me.
So the Biking and Walking Committee has been involved in all sorts of things, but the Red Bike program in particular is one that's generated a lot of interest throughout the community, so I was hoping you could share a little bit about where that program is, how it's been going this year, and what's in store for the future.
Well, the Red Bike program, yes, as you said, this is year 2. And we've learned some things each year. We learn more things on how to do it. Overall, I think we still have some issues to deal with, but we're working through those. And I think the good news is people are riding the bikes, and that's good to see. I think our immediate objective will be to get more bikes out in a way that people can use them and actually share the bikes with others. There's a need for bicycles in Austin, and we want to address that need as well.
For sure. So talk a little bit more about that. What does the sharing system look like, and how can we go about implementing it?
So we have a couple ideas as far as moving forward with a share. And one idea is a real, genuine bike share racking system, where we would put out a rack with bikes and people would check them out with an app on their phone. And that would address the sharing program. We could also address those people that need bikes with a program whereby people could either check them out for the season or take them another way.
Sure, that's great. On a broader level, I know that the committee's been very concerned about advocating for more trail miles and more connections and trying to integrate the city that way. Could you talk a little bit about that and how things are going?
Yeah, that was probably our main objective when we started this whole process, was to integrate our trails and make it add mileage and et cetera. So with that, and I think the city has been great, a great help. And actually, I have to commend our city engineer, Stephen Lang. He has really identified projects that are suitable for bike trails and for bikeways on roadways.
Yeah.
So I think moving forward, that will be our goal, to add mileage in terms of trails and on roadway marking share roads, bike lanes, etc.
Sure. So just seeing that continued growth, and that's going to have a big impact, both recreationally, people being able to get out and use the trails for biking or walking or skating or whatever it is they do outside, but also for the local economy. I know that there are a lot of things that bring people into Austin to bike. There's the high school mountain biking race every year now. So those are big tourist attractions and big drivers for the local economy as well.
Well, I think from the beginning, one of our goals was also to make Austin really a destination for people who want to use trails and bike and enjoy the outdoors that way. So working towards that goal has been another part of what we've been trying to do.
Sure. So I guess just to close out, talk a little bit about how the Red Bike program and the trail system and all these things are working together to really put Austin on the map from a state and even regional perspective. I know that you recently worked on an application to make Austin an official bike-friendly city. What was that process like, and how did it turn out?
Very, very long process to complete the needed paperwork and gather all the information for that application. And I submitted it to the League of American Bicyclists. They reviewed it, and I'm pleased to say that we did receive an honorable mention, which is one step below that, that coveted, I'll say, recognition as a bike-friendly city. So with that, we received a report and a scorecard back from the League, identifying those things we can really work on and could really up our to the next level.
Great. So it's giving us feedback on what we've been doing so far, but also some tools going forward that can help us improve it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Some keys to what we can do better.
That's great. So across the board, good things, and we're still working at it. That it's a continual process of improvement. So thank you so much for your work and for being here to talk with us today.
Thank you very much, Greg. Thank you.
Well, that does it for this edition of Vision 2020 Updates. If you'd like more information or want to get involved, please visit us at vision2020austin.com. Thanks for doing your part to create a greater Austin.
You can watch On Cue anytime by visiting the KSMQ TV website, ksmq.org.
As Winona grew after settlement, the need for lumber to construct the buildings caused the development of a lumber industry. In 1855, Luther Wyckoff and James Highlands began operation of this first sawmill in Winona. Within a couple of years, 4 sawmills were operating in the city. With the increasing number of sawmills in the city, it became necessary to obtain a large and consistent supply of wood for the mills. The most adequate nearby source was Wisconsin's Chippewa River Valley, and the Chippewa River was the means of moving the logs to the mills. Near the mouth of the Chippewa River was Beef Slough, an area of water that was large enough to assemble the logs into rafts for transfer to the Winona mills. Large camps were established for crews that were sent into the forests during the winter to cut the trees. The cut logs loaded onto sleds and were pulled and stacked along the riverbanks. Then, during the spring thaw, the logs were pushed into the river and floated to Beef Slough, where they were bound into rafts. The rafts were then towed by paddleboats down the Mississippi River to the 4 sawmills that were located along Winona's levee. Once at the mills, the rafts were broken and the logs were moved into the mills and sawed into boards. The boards were stacked into large piles and dried. The dried lumber was later planed smooth, and some of it was used in the manufacture of window sashes, doors, and other wood products. This story of the past is brought to you by the Winona County Historical Society.
Snapshot was one of KSMQ's popular series in the 1990s and early 2000s. From this episode, we explored the Story Lady doll and toy museum in Albert Lea. I hope you enjoy this look back into KSMQ's archives.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Snapshot. I'm Lori Casey.
And I'm Rod Boykin.
Rod, where are you taking us this week?
This week we'll be touring the Story Lady Doll and Toy Museum in downtown Albert Lea, Minnesota. If you had a favorite doll as a child, there's a good chance that this museum has one of them. The ladies who volunteer here spend many hours making it a magical place to spend an afternoon reliving your childhood or looking at history.
How it all started was Norma Robson. She was one of our local librarians. She was at the school, is what she was. She was a school librarian. And she was a doll collector. And she had this large collection of dolls, and she wanted to do something with them. And so she had really gone around to a lot of the surrounding communities to see if they wanted to start a doll museum. This room back here is the collection that Norma had. And so most of the dolls in this room are the dolls that were from Norma's collection. And we kind of call this our core. I always call it the core collection of the museum, you know, because it's a stationary. The only time it moves is we decided to change it, you know, maybe update a display or something, but it pretty much stays the same. Where in that other room, well, we're always changing those. And there are displays coming and going in that other room.
The Minnesota-Iowa Border Doll Club, it's called the Woman in the Shoe Doll Club, decided that to honor Norma for forming the doll club, that they would commission a doll to be made in the likeness of Norma by doll artist Agnes Boss. And we now have it here. And Agnes said, well, it looked really lonesome by itself. So she decided to do for children. So they're also sitting along with it. And they have miniature books with them. It's a very nice display. In the room that is not the storybook room, but we have many dolls in there. One is a case of German dolls, antique dolls. That would be dolls from the Armand Marseille designer, and from Kessner, from Simon Halbig, large dolls. And they are all done in a nice arrangement. Then in the case below that, you might be interested to see an antique wooden horse. In that display, we also have Shirley Temples and the Patsy dolls, which are all from the 1930s. Another case has a display of the royals. That would be the Diana and Charles, Andrew and Fergie. Diana recently sold for $5,000, the same doll we have, on Fox Network in the collectible show. We have the whole case there of Prince William and everybody. Then we have a case of Barbie dolls with furniture, kind of cute. Kids like that when we put that low down so that children can put their little fingers on the glass and look at it. Then above that, next we have a collection of kind of play dolls, we'd call them, by Fisher-Price. And then we also have another one called Kimberly. That case is really cute. Blackboard and school desk and all. Down below that is a whole set of baby dolls. And I think the baby dolls are really cute. And we have them by well-known designers too, Madame Alexander, and there is a Cupid doll by Rose O'Neill, a genuine, and other babies that people will recognize. Another scene then in the corner up above is a kitchen with plastic dolls, and some of them are composition from the 1960s and 70s. Down below that we have a collection of Indian dolls. They are just really nice. Now also we're proud in that room to find that we bought a frozen Charlie. And people look at me when I'm so thrilled over frozen Charlie. He is a porcelain type doll, china, and he is frozen. He has a kind of a big stomach and he's cute. And he is very rare because he has blonde hair, and with that he is rare because of the color of his body a little bit too. We have dolls on loan from one of our board members, the Precious Moments dolls. We have a big collection of dolls like Scandinavian dolls, ethnic dolls, dolls with stockinette faces. All of these are from the John collection. That's a nice collection. Some of their dolls are hand carved and dressed, and they are beautiful dolls, really nice. We have also a whole case of today's things. We have 3 Ventura dolls, and we have the Furby and other dolls of today. Another case is a doll that is just wonderful. She's called Sweets, and she's by Maud Tussey Fangle. We also have the Ginny dolls, and the Ginny dolls have been made for many years. The companies have changed. You can still purchase Ginny dolls. We think we maybe, when people donate dolls, can take better care than the people are, because dolls like to live where we live. This attic business in the basement is no place for dolls at all. We received a wonderful gift of a carousel with wooden figures. It goes round. We have an 8-track tape, plays music, and it's actually on a bicycle tire. This collection of wooden figures traveled around to fairs and various places. And it's really cute and really nice to watch. And most of them are dancers. Some of them are carved out of one block of wood. But then Popeye and Olive Oil somehow got in there. But it looks like an old-time dance.
All right, the museum is located at 131 North Broadway. And of course, our phone number is 377-1820. We're open Tuesday through Saturday from 12 until 4. And by appointment, if somebody would like to come and make an appointment to come in sometime evening, or like on Mondays when we're closed, we're happy to do that. And but they just have to call and make arrangements for that. There is a charge of $2 for an adult and $1 for children.
And we do welcome people to come to our gift shop because we have a lot of we try to be unique and different.
Yes.
While the Doll Museum is no longer a standalone, you can still find much of the collection at the Freeborn County Historical Society in Albert Lea. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Cue.
On Cue is a production of KSMQ Television in Austin, nonprofit public television.